Yeah, yeah. Say my young nigga, they gon' murder.
MBG shit. MBG bitch.
My young nigga, they gon' murder.
Convoys.
My young niggas, they gon' murder. I said my young niggas, they gon' murder. My young niggas, they gon' murder. You fuck around with them fuck arounds and you fuck around and get murdered. My young niggas, they gon' murder. They cook a nigga just like burgers. What's your name? You ain't making no noise, nigga, I ain't never heard of you. You fuck around with them fuck arounds and you fuck around and get murdered.
Hey, my young niggas, they be monsters. They ambush and hood, then drop it. 30s when we march, come like the mob, no guy. St. Lawrence shoot the lid, Debo and souls out of body. Hit the palace smoking dope, Channel 7 cup it tight. Hit the witness next week, no trial, no tomorrow. You would think we knew fast out the way we on fire. I got trained shooters.
If you saw my video on 600 Breezy, you heard in the song that I played at the end of the video, he said, they asked me what I'm smoking on, it's that KI. And if you're familiar with Chicago gang culture, you know one of the legends of the streets in Chicago who went by that name, young 17-year-old girl who got gunned down at 17, a member of that Tutu, Tookaville, St. Lawrence Boys GD set on the south side in Woodlawn, who went by the nickname KI. Her real name was Jakira Barnes, a 17-year-old girl. Also went by the nickname Lil Snoop, who was known as one of the most... She had a notorious reputation for being a killer. The situation with this girl, with Jakira Barnes, this is one of like the most heartbreaking, gut-wrenching situations that I see in Chicago, and it's not something that's uncommon. This kind of thing, I mean, someone going to the extent that Jakira Barnes did, where you have a girl going to that extent, is not that common for it to be a female like that. But that kind of social dynamic in the city is extremely common. It's too common. This is not an anomaly. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of different things in play here. So I'm going to go into kind of what was going on here. So Jakira Barnes, you know, if you go all the way back to the beginning of her life, her father was killed when she was only 1 year old. So, you know, Barnes was coming up in that area with the around the St. Lawrence boys down there on the south side, and when she got to be a teenager, she started hanging out with them. Now, you know, it's not exactly clear how exactly she started hanging out with that group, but in 2011, a 15-year-old member of that group by the name of Shondell Gregory, whose nickname was Tooka, was shot to death while he waited for a bus. Now, you know, this is something that's been talked about in a lot of rap songs. You know, E-Day was talking in some of his songs about, I'm going to put you under the bus like Tooka or whatever whatever he was saying. But they renamed their gang Tooka Gang, those St. Lawrence boys, those GDs down on the south side, and they took the name Tookaville. Now, Jakira, she took the Facebook name Tookaville Kira, okay? So she, you know, at this point was associating herself with that gang. Now, about 8 months after that, a 20-year-old rival gang member named Odie Perry was killed. And, you know, this was the guy after whom O-Block was later named. This was a BD. And Jakira was reported to have been the hitter and the killer of Odie. Okay, now this is one of, you know, the most notorious murders in recent Chicago history. You know, the murder that caused the renaming of that block to be named O Block, and for Jakira to be the murderer of Odie, or the reported murderer of Odie, you know, gained her a lot of street cred and a lot of street fame. You know, guys were tweeting like, you know, so Odie was killed by a girl, whatever, and kind of, you know, dissing the BDs because of that.
Swiper, he a swiper. My shooters, they got shooters. Spot them, drop them out the rifle. Brody, LTV strap. Make them dance, holler night. Pussy, money, murder, all three have been invited. Yeah.
My young niggas, they gon' murder. I said my young niggas, they gon' murder. My My young niggas, they gon' murder. You fuck around with them fuck arounds, and you fuck around and get murdered.
Jakira lost another member of her gang, a guy by the name of Carlton Archer. His nickname was Tutu. In November 2011, he was shot to death. She posted a photo up of saying R.I.P. Carlton, and she was, had a picture of herself like she was praying. But the killing that really affected K.I. the most was her cousin, Taekwon Tyler. He was only 13. She looked at him apparently, like a little brother. I didn't know K.I. I had never substituted at her school. I had never known anybody that had known her personally. But from what people were saying, she was really close to this kid, this 13-year-old kid, and he was killed. He had actually moved out of the area, and he came back on a visit, and he got caught up in some stray gunfire.
Team full of hoopers turned to a team full of shooters. Started on Everhard, blowing shit like a tuba. 064, we the shit. Nigga just like manure. Used to pill up you steamers just to do hits on the jewelers. Rugers, Lugers, and Cougars. Clips, smokers, school rulers. Nigga, we in that field, you in the house on computers. Devil in me, that's Luther. Smoking loud, I be boofing. Robin Hood, I be looting. Shout out King Larry Hoover. GD and BDK. Team no lacking, get grade. In the county, shit real. Niggas get shanked in the face. Niggas chasing them trays. We on the tray cracking trays. Ran a train on your bitch. She caught it right in the face. Dope checking, be line. Burning, that's the gun line. Lil' Troy, you cross it, you end up on the headlines. Niggas dissing the guys like we ain't make their career. Catch a flat out in Cali, I make them keep this a pill.
And the emotional toll that this took on her kind of was translated into anger. She took the Twitter handle Taekwon Assassin, kind of insinuating that, now she's just ready to kill in response to this murder. Now, during this time, the drill movement was really picking up steam in Chicago around 2011, 2012, and the BDs and the GDs were going back and forth. And occasionally in some of the songs, like in this one song, Murda, which I'm going to try to play on this video if it won't block it on YouTube, but a rapper named Young Dutchy mentioned that, K.I. is my young killer. Certain members of Tutu Gang were making statements that were basically suggesting that Jakira Barnes was doing a lot of the hits that were being attributed to the GDs down there. They were saying, they were tweeting like, oh, you other ends are afraid to do the dirty work, but my young female hitter, K.I., she's willing to do what you guys are afraid to do. There were statements coming out in the music and on Twitter that were basically giving K.I. a reputation of being a killer. Now, the police were not able to pin anything on her, though. There was no concrete evidence that she had done any of these hits. There were no concrete evidence that she had killed Odie, or any of the other, or JoJo, or any of the other BDs, but yet she was getting this reputation from the streets, and people were starting to talk about her like she was doing this stuff. Okay, so the cops didn't know, but the streets pretty much knew. Now in that video, Murder, she's actually in the video. So they at this point, put her in the video. She's wearing a bandana though. Now the next big hit, and probably the biggest hit after the hit on Odie that was attributed to K.I., was on April 9th, 2014. Chief Keef's cousin, Blood Money, was killed. Now, he was 30 years old. And, by this time, by 2014, Chief Keef had blown all the way up. Everybody knew him. And his cousin, Blood Money, was well known. He was a father of 5. When he got killed, that murder got a lot of attention. And, there was chatter going around on the streets that K.I. was the killer. She didn't make any online statements about it, and the police didn't pin anything on her, right? But just 12 days before that, though, she had lost another gang member, a 19-year-old by the name of Rasan Shaw. His nickname was Lil B. He had allegedly pointed a gun at the cops during a foot chase. And the cops had shot him, and she put out a statement on Twitter that said, "No surrender, Lil B. I done seen too many of my ends in a casket. In the end, we all die. And she had posted that on April 11th. Now, Lil J, who I'm going to talk about in an upcoming video, and I know you guys all know who Lil J is. He's a member of that Flyboy gang, that FBG. This is, by the way, is another name for that Tookaville gang, in case you guys don't know. He was taunting Blood Money's friends. You know, he was saying, I'm sipping on that Blood Money, you know, showing himself drinking like this red drink out of a cup. And on April 11th, just 2 days after that hit, after the Blood Money hit, K.I. was killed. She was gunned down, reportedly by a 14-year-old. She was hit. She suffered multiple gunshot wounds and bled out on the steps of a house, and she was buried close to her father. Now, her mother made several statements to the media, which I'm not going to quote, but basically saying that, you know, she was a good girl, and you know, all the flexing on social media was just image. She wasn't really about that life. That was just stuff that she was saying online in order to, you know, get her reputation up. And she wasn't really the kind of person that people were portraying her to be in the media. Now, for those of you guys who are new to my channel, who don't know too much about me, you know, I worked in the Chicago public high schools for about the last 12 years. I've gotten to know hundreds, if not thousands, of young girls like this, like Jakira Barnes, who are coming up in her situation. I didn't know her personally, and I don't like to speculate on people's, you know, motivations and what's going on in their internal psychology, because it's much more complex usually than it appears on the surface, even with something that appears to be as obvious as this. But I'll say this just in general about the issue of acceptance and peer pressure and cultural environments among these teens in Chicago. When I see normally like young girls trying to gain acceptance, 99% of the time they try to do it sexually. They're trying to have sex with a bunch of dudes. You know, they're trying to be as attractive as they can possibly be. This is normally what I see. I'm friends with a lot of teens in the hood on social media, on Facebook, and you know, they're posting up pics of themselves half naked, you know, with their booties sitting on the counter, and this kind of thing. This is how they try to gain acceptance. You know, at that age, the acceptance of one's peers is like the most important thing in your life. It's more important than, you know, what your parents think about you. It's more important in your future than what job you're going to get down the road. Being accepted by other people your age that you go to school with and that are in your neighborhood is like the most important thing to these kids. And, you know, like I said, most of them go that other route. However, in certain areas of the city, you know, like the ones where I work, like the schools where I work at. Now, I work mostly on the west side high schools. I don't work on the south side where, you know, Jakira Barnes was at. But it's pretty much the same issue on the west side. In these areas, right, there's a culture in place where you get respect by being about that gang life. I mean,
I'ma hit him with that clip. Cray, he go hard. 06 for fucking God. Mayor, EBT. Free my nigga, Lil Don. We in it and we getting it. I'm young and I'm with it. Guns everywhere. Fuck the pigs, cause I'm in it. Oh, let's do 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 it.
And this goes for like everybody, boys and girls. Now, normally girls don't, you know, go to the extent of getting involved in that. But if they do that, that respect is there for them to get as well, right? You know, one thing that a lot of these guys talk about in their videos is I got money, right? And getting money will get you respect. However, in the street culture, there's a certain level of respect that you can't even achieve by getting money. Like, you know, Drake has a lot of money. Chris Brown has a lot of money. A lot of these, you know, rappers, you know, a lot of guys have a lot of money. But even those guys that have 10 times as much money as some of these street guys, would not get the level of respect in the streets that someone who's committed murder can get. The highest level of respect in the streets is being a killer, someone who's caught bodies. And the more bodies you've caught, the more respect you get. And it's at the point right now where it doesn't even matter what the reason was that you caught the bodies. All that matters is that you've got bodies, that you've killed people. And, you know, even if you don't have any money, even if you're dead broke, if you've killed people and people know that you've killed people, that's going to get you a certain level of respect. And actually, in some circles, in some social circles, and, you know, I know people who are like this, they will actually make fun of you and call you a lame if you haven't killed anybody. It's like you have to kill somebody just to be accepted by this social group. How it is. This is the point where it's at in certain parts of the city. And, you know, in certain, I don't want to say in certain parts because, like, not everybody in that neighborhood will be part of that social environment, but in certain worlds, in certain social circles, this is the norm, you know, where you have to have killed someone to be respected and accepted by this group. And for a young girl who's at an age when a lot of girls are insecure, you know, and are looking for acceptance and are looking for love, to gain the acceptance of guys and of older guys, especially a girl who didn't have a father in her life, I can see how that would be a tremendously alluring prospect and why she would be willing to do anything to get that. Now, again, I didn't know Jakira Barnes. I don't know if that's why she did what she did. I'm just speculating. And I'm actually not even speculating on her specific situation, but I'm just talking in generally. You know, these teenage girls, like, the acceptance of guys at that age is huge. You know, and to gain that acceptance in a way which really would take you to the ultimate level of acceptance, to where you'll even be like a hero, respected even more than the guys in that social circle. I mean, I can see how that would be a temptation that would just be almost impossible to resist. It's like I say over and over again in my videos, if you can't get love, respect is the next best thing. And getting a lot of respect is a really good thing. And to kill somebody and to be known as a killer and a hitter gets you a lot of respect in Chicago. Now, you might ask, why does it get you a lot of respect? Like, why do people respect that? Well, the gang culture in Chicago, you got to take it back with the history all the way to the earliest days, you know, and the people who were willing to kill for the gang were the people who, you know, were considered to be the most loyal because they had the most dirt on them. You know, they're not going to snitch because, like, the cops are going to bust them before anybody else. You know, like, how could somebody who's killed somebody snitch on somebody who's just sold dope? It's like the cop would want to lock up the killer before they lock up the dealer. You know what I'm saying? So it's like the killer was considered the most loyal gang member. And, you know, they were the person who was respected and valued the most by the gang. And Chicago has been run by gangs, basically, for a long time. And we're not just talking about black gangs. We're talking about European gangs, the Italian mafia, the Russian mafia, the cartels. You know, the cartels are active here. You know, and people who kill for the gang are the most down. They're the most with it. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, because of the long history of gangs that we have in this city, killing gets the respect that it does.
That's some shit that they fear. Niggas, hoes, they be queer. I got crack for your ear. Man, I'm high as the skies. I'm taking off in that left. White Remy and dope. White hoes and coke. No, I ain't no coach, cause me, I'm more like a player. At the top of the key. Crossover then layup. If you
Now, that's not true in all corners of the city. Like, for example, you know, the white yuppies in Lincoln Park are not going to respect other white yuppies that kill people. You know, that social norm is not there with that segment of the population. And people say, well, is that an economic thing? No, it's really not an economic thing. I mean, even with rich gang members who are making millions off of dope at the top levels, they'll still respect each other for killing. You know what I'm saying? For being able to have the cold-heartedness to be able to kill. So, yeah, that's the situation with that. Now, I'm going to get back to Jakira, though, in a little bit, because, you know, it's a heartbreaking situation. I see these girls that are getting no love from their parents. They're getting no love from their friends, and so they go for this respect. And like I said, most of them try to do it in a sexual way, but a few of them try to do it like Jakira Barnes. I've never met a girl who's gone to the length that Jakira Barnes did, where she's killing multiple people. if that in fact is what she was doing. I mean, people said that she was doing that. The cops never pinned anything on her. But, you know, if she was doing that, I've never met a girl who was going that far. I met a girl who killed her own kid because, like, she didn't want her baby daddy to find out that she had cheated on him or something like that. I had a girl in class who had actually done that. She was supposed to be in my class. She was absent one day, and then I looked at the paper, and it was my student who was being locked up for killing her own kid. This was in Humboldt Park. But that's really the only girl that I've ever met who's ever committed murder, and that in a way that I've known about. Now, I've known girls who reportedly had done hits, but no one that I had ever definitively found out had done that. But again, you know, these girls, I mean, they just go for this acceptance. Like, it's like they just crave this. I mean, the acceptance of guys in these high schools is like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for these chicks, man. They love it. They have to have it. They'll do anything to get it. You know, and, you know, people don't understand, like, why would a 17-year-old girl become a killer like this? Guys, I see these chicks doing stuff that you would never even, like, I remember there was this one girl at Sullivan High School, and, you know, for all you guys who graduated back in, like, 05, 06, you know the girl I'm talking about. She was from the west side, but she was going to school on the north side. She was a stone, a Lady Mo, okay, and I'm not gonna say her name. Everybody who was in this area at the time, probably everybody from this hood, knows who I'm talking about. She was just crazy. She was so turned up, always bullying the other chicks, always making fun of the other chicks, always beating up other girls, always talking about stuff she was doing on the streets, and she was just like out of control, you know. And you know, I'm thinking to myself, like, what the heck is wrong with this chick? You know, all the teachers, you know, dreaded having this girl in class. She was always trying to cause all these kinds of problems. And, I mean, really, she was saying stuff, though. You know, she would always, like, badmouth teachers, cuss teachers out, go off on the cops. There were cops in school. She would always threaten the police, do all this kind of stuff. And, you know, the teachers would respond with meanness, and the cops would respond with meanness by being extra hard on the chick. But there was one teacher at the school that I saw that really kind of perceived that what this girl was seeking was acceptance, you know, was love. And so the teacher, while this girl was being mean to this teacher, the teacher was nice back. And it was weird. Like, this girl, her response to this teacher kind of like changed. After the teacher was nice back to this girl and actually like talked to this girl and said, I think you, I forgot what the teacher said. You know, she was basically giving the girl a lot of respect, even though the girl was being disrespectful towards her, but she was responding with respect towards the girl. This girl turned around and just like fell in love with this teacher and, became like so respectful to this teacher that it was almost like insane. I mean, she would go around telling the other kids, anybody that messes with this teacher, I'm going to kill you. You know, like she would, when the cops would come by and, when the teacher was in the hall or whatever, she would be like, I don't want anybody messing with this teacher, whatever. She would tell the other students, if you mess with this, if you give this teacher a hard time in class, I'm going to have you jumped. I'm going to have you shot. I mean, she just went all out for this teacher, and this teacher wasn't doing anything, extraordinary. She wasn't, telling this girl, I'm going to, get you a college scholarship or I'm going to get you a new car or anything like that. But she was just being respectful towards the girl, and she was accepting the girl. She was offering to help the girl. She was saying, if you need a ride home, I'll give you that. She was doing things that really, I mean, normally a kid would have to earn, or somebody, she was giving the girl respect that normally would have to be earned, but she was giving it to the girl for free. She wasn't making the girl earn her respect or acceptance. And she was acting also kind of like a parent towards this girl. And I mean, the girl, I mean, man, she just responded. And again, initially she was disrespectful towards this teacher, but once the teacher responded with that respect, it was like she treated this teacher like a parent. And to be honest with you guys, that kind of unconditional love and respect is something that a lot of these kids are not getting from their parents that they should be getting. I know kids whose parents kicked them out of the house at 13, at 12. Kids who've been kicked out of their house for like no reason by their parents, because their parents just, maybe the parent didn't like the girl's dad or something like that, and so she's taking that out on the girl, you know. And a lot of people outside of the hood see these kids making irrational decisions, and see people in the hood making irrational decisions, doing things which really seem stupid, and they think like, well, why would they do that? That's not a smart thing to do. But when you're like emotionally starving like that for respect and acceptance and love, it's like you're willing to do stuff that ordinary people wouldn't do, and you're willing to do irrational stuff and stuff that doesn't make sense from a financial standpoint. You're willing to do anything because that kind of love is more important, really, than having a nice house and a nice car and a good job and all that stuff. If you don't got that love and respect, especially for a teenage girl, it's like your life doesn't matter to you anymore. They get to a point where they're desperate for it, and to where they're willing to do anything for it, you know. And they're seeking it a lot of times, you know, in circles where it's really not healthy to seek it in, but it's like if they can get it from there, they're going to get it. So, you know, in my videos, I don't like to just make these things for informational purposes only. You know, I like to actually tell people, you know, about what they can do if they want to do something, because I know a lot of people, you know, who live in Chicago want to do something to help alleviate this thing. And, you know, if you live in the hood or you work in the hood, one thing that I, you know, am going to start actually, you know, telling everybody that everybody can do is just talk to these kids. You know, just if you see them at the bus stop, whatever, if you see them at the park, anywhere, just strike up a conversation with these kids any way you can. Just any indication that you are interested in what's going on with their life has a profound impact on these kids' behavior. Just giving them respect, just, you know, taking an interest in what's going on with them will actually change the course of certain decisions that they're making, because they'll feel wanted, they'll feel important, they'll feel like somebody cares about them, and that will actually change their psychology. You know, a lot of older folks I see are afraid of these kids, you know, because they think, well, you know, these kids are gangbanging and they might kill me or whatever. You know, I mean, it's up to you. I mean, if you're afraid, you know, whatever, okay, I guess you're just afraid. But, I mean, I do it, and I'm like one of the only white people in the situation, you know. I mean, I'm like the last person that you would think, you know, these kids would be willing to listen to, or, you know, whose opinion would matter to these kids. But when I strike up a conversation with these kids, you would be shocked at, like, how some of these kids will just latch onto me. Like, dang, here's somebody who actually cares about what's going on with me. Now they want to come and go to lunch with me. Now they want to be friends on Facebook. Now they want to come and play ball with me. Now they want to smoke dope with me. Now they want to do everything with me, after I just asked them how they're doing. Like, that's it. You know what I mean? It's like a minimal thing, but, you know, anybody who cares about them is like, it's like gold to them. You know what I'm saying? Because they're craving that in their life. And so, you know, if you live in the hood, if you work in the hood, I would say, please, you know, if you can, just talk to these kids, just ask them what's going on, because they need authority figures, they need parents, and it takes a village to raise a child. And, you know, a lot of these kids have parents who, frankly, are not doing their job. And, you know, I offend people in my videos all the time because I tell it like it is, and I describe the situation as I observe it without caring who I offend. And, you know, I'm going to be honest with you guys. There's a certain set of requirements that it takes to produce a kid, to make a kid. And those same requirements are not required to raise a kid. There's a lot of people who have the requirements to produce a kid, but they lack the requirements to raise a kid. They lack maybe the intelligence. They lack the psychological stability. They lack the emotional capacity. They lack the love that it takes to raise a child. And yet they're able to make a child. And in the end, it's the child that ends up suffering for that, because they're being raised by somebody who doesn't want them, who doesn't have the intelligence to know what to do in certain situations. And this is going on all over the place. And I'm not generalizing about, you know, hood parents. There's a lot of parents in the hood that are doing fine, that are smart people. That, like, you look at Hydea Pendleton's parents. These people are smart, educated, loving people. You know what I'm saying? Who are doing a great job with their daughter. She got smoked because, you know, she was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But I'm saying, like, you know, there are some people who are like this, and there's some people who are not. But, you know, the kids, and I'm not saying that Jakira Barnes' mom was like this or whatever. I didn't know her. I know nothing about her, so I can't judge her. But, you know, there's a lot of kids who are being raised by people that really are not fit to raise kids. So it's going to take a village to raise these kids. You know, it's going to take a village to keep these kids from becoming messed up gangbanging killers. Really, I mean, it's going to take, because if you don't reach out to them and show interest in them, somebody who doesn't have their best interests in mind will. Somebody who wants them to do hits for them, somebody who wants them to commit murder, somebody who wants them to move packs of dope will reach out to these kids and, you know, take them under their wing. You know, there was a bunch of teenagers arrested earlier this year who were taking the South Shore line to Indiana, moving packs of cocaine, you know, for somebody. And it's like these guys are being parented by drug dealers and, you know, gang leaders. So, and this is going on all over the place, you know, so anything that you can do, you know, I would say don't be afraid, man. You know, what are we on this earth to do? Are we on this earth just to make money and eat and sleep and then die? I mean, if we're not on this earth to help the youth, it's like I can't think of any better, you know, purpose to life than that. I mean, I would risk my life to, you know, just strike up a conversation with one of these gangbangers and say, you know, hey, what's going on with you, man? How you doing? Whatever, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I know it takes a certain level of like social skill to do that, but look, guys, I'm a white nerd. I'm a white geek. And I do this all the time in the hood, and the kids are fine with it. Not only are they fine with it, they're really like excited about someone who is interested in what's going on with their life. You know what I mean? So it's not, I would not be nervous about it at all. You know, I've even gone up to like groups of gang members. I remember like I've seen like GDs on the corner like throwing up brakes to passing cars, and I've just gone up to them and be like, hey, what's going on, guys? You know, how you guys doing? Whatever, blah, blah, blah. You know, and then you just get to know them. This is how you get to know these kids. And, you know, then, like, when they're having a problem with their life or a dilemma, they'll come to you. Because, you know, I've been in situations where, like, guys have been ready to just ride on somebody, kill somebody. And, you know, they'll tell me about it. And then that gives me the chance to try to convince them not to do that. You know what I'm saying? And that's a chance that never would be there if I wouldn't have, you know, 6 months earlier decided to just strike up a conversation with these kids at the basketball court. You know, I had given up basketball. Like, I had stopped playing for like 5 years because I was just like, I'm done with this. I was, you know, doing other forms of exercise, whatever. I got back into it because it was allowing me to have an in to be able to like socialize with these gangbangers, you know what I'm saying, and kind of like learn what was going on with them, because, you know, it was giving me a chance to meet a lot of them and get involved in these conversations that were informing me about the gang conflicts that was allowing me to kind of convince these kids not to do what they were doing, you know. And if you respect them and you care about them, they'll listen to you. They don't care if you have street cred or not. The respect that you have for them is credibility enough. And then also the one other thing that I want to say is there really is, I mean, with the gang culture and with the with everything that's going on now, you know, in Chicago, there really is a spiritual dimension to this. And this isn't just the case with Chicago. This is the case with anybody who commits murder. It's the case with these biker gangs, with these, you know, white, you know, Hells Angels biker gangs. It's the case with the Italian mafia, with the Russian mafia, with serial killers, with everybody who's committed murder. There really is a spiritual dynamic that is set in motion, and that is like this downward spiral into darkness. I mean, and, you know, anyone who's, you know, associated with anyone who's done this or anyone who's done this themselves knows what I'm talking about. It's like once you've crossed that threshold and done it once, it's like now you're on this plunge over the edge of the cliff. And, you know, it just goes deeper and deeper until you're in this world where you don't feel anything except that rush of the respect. That becomes the only thing that you can feel, and it becomes the only thing that you live for. And, you know, things like love and connection with other people, that's all gone. You know, you've become a one-dimensional spiritual being where you only live for that one rush. And you see this with, you know, you see this all over Chicago, you know, people who, you know, become numb and desensitized to everything, to every other emotion other than the rush of killing. And they become murder addicts. There are people in Chicago, you know, who have caught over 50 bodies. You know what I'm saying? Because it becomes like an addiction. It's like that's the only thing that will do it for them now. And on some level, it's boring. It becomes boring to them because it's that same rush over and over again. It never really satisfies them on any deep level. and lasting level. And so, you know, once the rush is gone, they need it again and again and again. And it becomes this monotonous, boring thing, and they really become like zombies, with really no purpose in life. And this is going on like all over the place. There's a lot of people who are in this situation, and it's a spiritual problem. It's like dying spiritually, because what we are meant to feed on spiritually is, you know, love and that kind of thing, and really God. I mean, like, people who don't believe in God and people who don't believe there's a devil, it's like, I mean, I don't know how you can be involved in like the gang infested environment in Chicago and not believe that there's a devil. You know what I'm saying? Because you see him in action, you know, in the most graphic way all the time. You know what I'm saying? You know how they say that there's no atheist in a foxhole? Well, the hood in Chirac is a foxhole. And, you know, some of these gang members, like, some of them are like the most religious people that you know, because like they're dealing with some of these spiritual realities that are so extreme and visible. Some of these kids who start off as these innocent little kids and just turn into these complete savages, because they do it once, they do it the first time, they do that first murder, and now they're plunging into that downward spiral to the point where they can feel nothing, no compassion for anybody, to the point where they don't even care about killing their own mother. You know what I'm saying? And this really goes on all over the place. And you think back to like 3-4 years ago when this person was an innocent little child that wouldn't harm a bug. But the devil takes them down that water slide, and it's like, man, in a few years, they've turned into a complete monster. And this spiritual reality, I see it all over the place. It's profound. It's profound. Like it's real. It's very real. And you know, like, there have been times in my life when I've, you know, doubted God. There's never been a time in my life when I living in Chicago when I've doubted evil, when I've doubted the devil. Because it's like, man, you see him doing his thing. You know what I'm saying, in the hood over here, man. So that's its own separate issue, though. I don't want to go off on a long tangent on that. But one thing that I want to say about the parents, okay, so this kind of thing you see is a very common thing. These kids, these gangbangers do these murders, and then the parent, you know, they get killed or whatever, and then the parent is interviewed, and the parent said, oh, they were a good kid, blah, 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 all this stuff about them being a killer, that's all overblown. But they were really a good kid, and this is just, you know, something that happened to them, unfortunately. When reality, guys, is too hard of a pill to swallow, people don't accept reality. They invent a myth, and they start to live in a world of fantasy. And, you know, you raise your kid to be a, you know, they're your little baby, they're your little darling, whatever. And they start going off on that path that I just described, that spiritual path. And it's like, no one wants to admit that this is going on. No parent wants to look at their kid and look what's happening to their kid turning into this demon and admit that this is happening. Because it's like, that's just too hard of a pill to swallow. So they start thinking like, well, it's not really that bad. This is all just flexing on social media. They're just trying to get a reputation by, you know, bragging. They're not really out there killing people. They're not really a monster. And meanwhile, they're actually turning into a monster. So how to stop this from happening? The parents, guys, really, I don't expect that the parents are going to, that there's going to be any change in the Chicago parents that's going to make this stop happening. It's really got to be, like I just said, the responsibility of the neighbors and of the village to, at some point, sit down with this parent that you know and say, look, if you don't get your kid out of this situation, your kid's going to end up dead. You know, and just tell them in the most harsh, stark terms that you can, because, you know, a real friend will tell a person when something is, you know, when they're doing something that's bad for them. And you know, a real friend will sit these parents down and say, look, if you don't move, if you don't remove your child from this environment, your child's going to end up dead soon. You know, like, because there's a point at which these kids become so enmeshed in the gang conflicts that without physically removing them from that environment, there's no way to stop them from doing that. I think a lot of these parents convince themselves that, like, well, this is just a phase they're going through. They're just trying to, you know, they're just responding to peer pressure or whatever, and they'll come out of it. If I just sit down and talk to them and say, hey, look, you need to concentrate more on your schoolwork or whatever, they'll change. You know, maybe if I, you know, help encourage them to get in with a new group of friends, maybe if I help them to hang out more with their cousin Billy, who's a good student, maybe that'll change them. And, you know, they're not looking at the situation for what it is. You know, like, after you get past a certain point with this gang life, there's no going back. The only way to get out of it is to move. That's the only way to get out of it. And a lot of these parents are sold the lie that you have to have money to get out of the hood. Guys, you don't need any money to get out of the hood. I've said in my other videos, there is housing in the burbs that's just as cheap as the housing in the hood. There's people moving out of the hood all the time at no cost. You know, actually, matter of fact, I know housing in the suburbs that's cheaper than the housing in the hood. But a lot of people don't want to leave the hood. A lot of people are afraid of change. You know, they're afraid to go into a different environment. They don't want to have a longer commute. Well, when you're staring at your kid in a casket, you're going to wonder whether or not it was worth it to take that extra bus. You know what I mean? People don't want to admit that this is going to happen. And so it's the job of the neighbors and the job of the friends of these parents, because the parents psychologically just can't do it. They can't face that reality. It's the job of their friends and the job of the neighbors to look that parent in the eye and say, your kid is gonna get killed if you don't move now. You know what I'm saying? And I'm encouraging everyone to do this. This is all of our job to step up. I've had to do this to people. I've had to say, you know, on the current course of events, your kid and you are going to end up dead. And I said, maybe even you are going to end up dead. Your house is going to get shot up. You know what I'm saying? It's like you got to have the courage to say these things, you know, because somebody's got to say it. And, you know, this is going on all over the place. We can't wait for the government to solve this. We can't wait for the cops to solve this. They're not going to solve it. We have to solve it. You know what I'm saying? We who are in the community have to, you know, do our part. And our part really will have an effect. A lot of times you feel powerless, like, oh, there's nothing we can do. There is something we can do. We can do something right now. We can respect these kids. We can start up conversations with these kids, taking interest in what's going on with these kids' lives. We can talk to their parents and help them to face reality. And, you know, these things will save lives. And if we even save one life, it's worth it. Because, you know, every life means the world to their parents, to God, to everybody. So that's all I got to say about this, you guys. This video's gone too long already. R.I.P. K.I. You know, she's the one in the video wearing the black mask, the light-skinned girl. If you guys haven't noticed that, the one on the song that I played at the beginning. You know, another casualty of these streets. I hope that, you know, I hope you guys take my advice. I hope no other kid goes down this path and has to feel the pain that, you know, everybody associated with her felt. But, you know, honestly, probably a lot of her fellow gang members are numb to this pain because they're probably in the same spiritual condition that she was before she got murked. So this is your boy Chicago News, you guys. I'm loose.
Team full of hoopers turned to a team full of shooters. Started on Ever Hard, blowing shit like a tuba. 064, we the shit. Nigga, just like manure. Used to pill up you steamers just to do hits on the jewelers. Rugers, Lugers, and Cougars. Clips, longest school rulers. Nigga, we in that field. You in the house on computers. Devil in me, that's Luther. Smoking loud, I be boofing. Robin Hood, I be looting. Shout out King Larry Hoover. GD and BDK. Team no lacking, get grade. In the county, shit real. Niggas get shanked in the face. Niggas chasing them trays. We on the tray cracking trays. Ran a train on your bitch. She caught it right in the face. Dope checking, be line. Burning, that's the gun line. Lil' Troy, you cross it, you end up on the headlines. Niggas dissing the guys like we ain't make their career. Catch a flight out in Cali, I make them keep disappear. Truly Louis, my gear. Foreign whips, I'm a stare. They like so icy, you that's some shit that they fear. Niggas, hoes, they be queer. I got crack for your ear. Man, I'm high as the skies. I'm taking off in that left. White Remy and dope. White hoes and coke. No, I ain't no coach, cause me, I'm more like a player. At the top of the key, crossover then layup. If you owe me, then pay up. We got jocks with them lasers. And my flow just campaign, so icy shit run for mayor. Free my brothers, they slayed them. Jumping gates for the paper. Pulling capers on neighbors, and I don't do niggas favors. Blowing kush at my haters, I stay froze like a glacier.
Oh, that dog!